If you were Tony Khan and you had to introduce a new championship belt in 2022, what belt would you debut on AEW Dynamite? Over 50% of the votes came in, and you guys voted for AEW Six-Man Tag Team Championships. This was followed by an 18% of the vote AEW Hardcore Championship, and 13% of you said AEW Light Heavyweight Championship, 12% said a Women's Tag Team Championship, and a 7% of you voted for a Middleweight Championship belt. Guys, we're doing more polls like this on my community tab on a daily basis. I want you to know that your voices are heard, so feel free to engage with those, and we're going to read the results every video because I just think it's a really cool thing to do, and I'm glad we all love pro wrestling. We're going to kick things off talking about Jeff Cobb. If you guys didn't know, Jeff Cobb is headed to MLW November 6th at the MLW Fusion tapings. This was confirmed from Court Bauer. And, I get questions all the time, whether it's on YouTube or Discord or Twitter. People always want to know what happened to Jeff Cobb on AEW. And while I'm not Tony Khan and I can't specifically answer that, guys, what I can tell you is this. Jeff Cobb was never signed to AEW exclusively, and it was a short-term contract. It also happened at the early stages of AEW, which I think will always be one of my most annoying things about AEW for a long time. Like, this thing right here will go down in history as one of the biggest blunders AEW has ever made, because I think Jeff Cobb in AEW exclusively would have been massive for AEW long-term. Now, of course, AEW is rumored to sign ROH stars that have been released. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on in this video, but the cool thing is MLW is not going to have an exclusive contract with Jeff Cobb, so there is technically a fair chance that, he could go somewhere else if he chooses to. Obviously, we've seen him in New Japan, we've seen him internationally, we've seen him in MLW before. I think MLW is really cool. If you guys aren't watching MLW, I suggest you get behind it. I think there is a huge need for some of these smaller companies, especially when you have two major global conglomerates that are AEW and WWE. In just a few moments, we're also going to talk about a new wrestling promotion, and I'm really excited about that. So, look, Jeff Cobb going to MLW, not exclusively, but people want to know why he's not in AEW, so there's your answer. AEW didn't sign him to a long-term contract, and honestly, I don't know if AEW ever will sign him to a long-term contract because, look, if you sign too many people, then you really draw in the comparisons to WCW, and on top of that, if you sign too many people, your homegrown talent, your talent that have stuck with you since day one, you're just going to piss them off when they're being shelved to the side just to make room for somebody new. And that's happening right now in AEW. That is. Whether or not we want to admit it, it is happening. It's not a concern because of the way AEW does their business and the way they do their television, but it is something to, keep an eye out on. So yeah, we're going to talk about a new wrestling company, Deadlock Pro Wrestling. If you guys aren't familiar with the Deadlock podcast, Tony Pizza Guy, Pulse, John Blood from New Legacy, those three run the Deadlock podcast. And it is actually a really big success on the internet. So them expanding and deciding, hey, we're going to launch a pro wrestling promotion. Not only is it a really great idea, in my opinion, it's a very ballsy idea, in my opinion. But it's one that I'm actually really excited about. You guys might know from the history of this channel and my YouTube career, I'm really good friends with Tony Pizza Guy, who also had experience running his own indie promotion before several years ago. So look, you guys, if you listen to their podcast, you'll know that these guys are incredible. You guys will know that they're creative. And on top of that, they're pro wrestling fans just like us. So I think right now, when you see a company like ROH close and you see a new company like this show up, and look, we don't know what the production is going to be like. We don't know what type of creative and storytelling process they're going to have. We don't know, right? We know that they're going to produce wrestling tapings. It's going to get uploaded online. And that's pretty much the gist of it, right? But if Deadlock Pro Wrestling could bring in some pretty big names, if they can do some really cool stuff in terms of creative and match types and championship matches and like things that actually work in the long term for fans, trust me when I tell you guys this, they have a great audience. They have a hardcore audience. That's exactly what pro wrestling fans are looking for. They want something new. They want something exciting. And, we talk a lot about AEW and WWE here, but people always want more wrestling. And if you can get it for free or for a low cost, it's really easy to get excited about wrestling because you start to find out about new stars before they're even born. There's so much that gets into it. So I'm excited about them launching a new promotion. I don't really know what to expect. I will support it. I think having another DPW in town is always a great thing. But most importantly, these guys do a great job with their show. They have a really good audience. Uh, Look, go for it. I see a lot of people comparing this to What Culture Pro Wrestling. I've seen it on Reddit and on Twitter and stuff. People who are saying that, like, to me, this is better than What Culture Pro Wrestling. And we haven't even seen an episode of this. But the reason why I'm even sticking my neck out or endorsing something like this is because these three people, man, I've been on YouTube for 13 years. Like, these three people are some of the most hardworking people I've seen on YouTube. So, like, that's where the passion, I think that passion right there leads to big things. And, hey, my job is to talk about wrestling news and rumors. So I follow everything before it even blows up. You never know. Maybe this thing becomes the next big wrestling promotion. Like, you just don't know what it could be. And that's why it's exciting. So yeah, ultimately I am excited about it and I look forward to it and I wish them all the best. But on top of that, no bias here. Like, I want to see them do well and I want to see people go here and I want to see them make things happen because that's what the pro wrestling world needs, especially when a company like ROH just closes down. All right, and speaking of ROH closing down, we know that the roster, tons of people have been released. Well, not tons of people. The entire roster has been released. And on top of that, we have to talk about this because now there's rumors that AEW is interested in signing several members of the released ROH roster. Now, on top of that, there have been some rumors for a while that suggest some AEW talent are unhappy because of the new signings that are taking place, and it's obviously pushing people back on the shelf. Now, on top of that, we have to discuss this. ROH, I think one thing that a lot of people are forgetting is some pro wrestlers, I'm not saying all pro wrestlers, but some pro wrestlers do feel the need to stick it out for ROH. Whatever happens in the long term of this business, they're going to go find other places to work. Maybe Deadlock Pro Wrestling is an option for them. I don't know. But from what I'm seeing and from what I'm hearing, there are some ROH talent who feel like they're not going to sign with WWE or AEW, largely due to the fact that they are willing to stick it out and stay loyal to ROH because of how well they took care of them during the pandemic. And that totally makes sense. However, if AEW signs anybody from ROH, it's really, really important that AEW does not shove these people down the throats of fans because you will anger people. You can't just sign everybody from WWE and ROH and then forget about the talent that you have. But also at the same time, too, I think it is AEW and WWE's responsibility because they have the money. I think they should be helping getting some of these wrestlers jobs. Right? You have NXT, you have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have AEW, Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, Elevation. You have all of these shows. And don't forget, Impact Wrestling is a major player now. These guys got to get signed. I expect AEW to do it, but I hope AEW doesn't overshadow the talent that they already have because it could become a problem in the long term, and that will truly draw more comparisons to WCW than ever before. Let me know what you guys think of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you next time right here on Destination PW.